welcome to the latest edition of Client Horror Stories. I'm honored and excited to have on tonight Ben Nuttall. Ooh, I didn't ask you if how to pronounce your name when we were chatting beforehand. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yeah, that's good.
It's a good enough. You're with my American twist
Yeah,
to this.
yeah.
Um, in honor of interviewing a Brit tonight, I have my American flag coffee mug with tea in it, but tea in honor of Britain. But Ben, you have quite a story about your first job and lots of lessons that we can share so that other people could avoid the horror stories that you survived. Let's jump right in. I'd love to hear the story.
Yeah, sure. Basically, just to begin with, I should say, I work at the BBC now, so I'm in, a big corporation in the UK, and very well formed organization, and with good software development practices. And I was going to say that I work with I mentor a lot of younger, graduates and junior members of staff, and it's amazing to see how the difference between my first job and some of the people I'm working with, their first experience is much more kind of catered for and looked after, and they're thought about properly. And mine was quite different. So I mean, even from arriving at the interview, everything there should have been alarm bells going off, but I was young and naive and didn't see the signs really. But everything from
But but
turning
but,
up.
but But by the way, I want to add to that. That's a good point I hadn't thought about before. That your first job ever really frames what working should be like. So it like kind of sets the norm. So if someone graduates and gets an awesome job at the BBC as their first job, they kind of think that's what all jobs are like, and that's how the universe works. But you can definitely attest that it's not that not all jobs are like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you join the BBC today, you'd have so much support, and you'd have good line management, and you'd have an expectation about what it is working in a company. You'd be one tiny part in this huge system, and you're kind of you're expected to be on a learning curve. You're not really handed great responsibility, as a junior or a graduate. But in a completely other sort of case of affairs, like the one I joined in, I was the only web developer in this thing, and I had to run this website and get it up to, get it straight to what we would never refer to it as production, because there wasn't anything else. But essentially the equivalent of what we would call that. So yeah, really
So
really different experiences people can have.
totally, and you judge all of it by first. Like the way I kind of judge the way the world works is the way I thought the world worked when I was 13. Like when you're 13 and you're starting to understand the world, that's kind of what normal is. So your first job has a similar sort of effect to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let's jump in. Let's go through this story,
Yeah.
starting from the first interview. What happened?
So yeah, I turned up at the interview, and I kind of thought, well, what do you wear for an interview? So I was wearing my like a full suit, and smart trousers, smart shoes, and a shirt and tie, and I get there, and I ring the bell, and I'm worried about getting there on time, and trying to find the place and all that kind of thing. So I'm kind of getting a bit flustered getting there on time, and getting there,
Mm.
and yeah, I show up really smart, and I ring the bell, and a guy comes up, and he's wearing like beach shorts and flip flops, and like a like a scraggly sort of top, and I'm there in this full suit. And first of all, I say, I'm here for an interview with Chris. That's who just some guy that I'd been emailing with. And the first thing he said was, "Oh, Chris doesn't work here anymore." And now this is like this is an alarm bell. Like, okay, the guy I was speaking to on email 2, 3, 4 days ago has gone, and they're not expecting me. So from me going, I hope they don't mind that I'm here like bang on time and not early, or something like that. And I hope I'm dressed okay and all that kind of thing. They weren't even expecting me because the guy doesn't work there anymore.
Yeah.
So
So
instead
right.
of thinking,
So there are two. I like articulating the red flags as we see them for our younger versions of ourselves watching. So the first, so red flag is the very informal clothing combined with not just the guy didn't work there anymore because people are fired or they leave, but like that rapid transition without a handoff or expectation. That's like today we would realize, wait, that smells fishy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if I was running an interview, even if I wore kind of casual clothes for my day job in an office, if I knew I was having an important meeting or meeting some external partners or interviewing somebody, I would, maybe not go the full, depending on the company and the position or whatever, but maybe not go the full suit or anything, but you would at least dress reasonably smartly, But I suppose he wasn't expecting me, so he has that excuse. So yeah, the guy doesn't work there anymore. This guy welcomes me in and says, "Well, okay, what job were you applying for?" And I tell him, web developer, and he says, "Oh yeah, yeah, come on in." Sits me down and he's searching for my CV and my resume in his in this other guy's email inbox, the guy who's left, and he's searching for my resume, and he finds it and he scrolls through it. And this is again me thinking like, oh, I've spent ages getting the typography right
Yeah.
and aligning all the columns and everything, again making sure the right words are in focus, and he's just scanning through it in front of me in 10 seconds. And then, he says, "Oh, can you show me some websites that you've made before?" And I give him a bunch of URLs and he types them in and, opens up a few tabs and flicks around them and that kind of thing. And I don't remember him asking me any technical questions as such. I think it was just a case of, if you can make websites, then, you can sit in this chair and you can make websites for us. So he just flat out offered me, I don't think he offered me the job immediately. He just said, "Could you come in tomorrow and do like a trial day and see how you get on, and then, well, as long as you can do tomorrow, then you can have a job." So I did that, and that was a Friday. So I did a full day's work, sort of as a trial on a Friday, and then he said, "Well, we were talking about me starting the new job on the Monday," but he actually straight off said, "Are you free tomorrow?" I'm thinking Saturday. Surely they don't work Saturdays. And I'm like, I sort of hesitated, but I thought, well, yes, I am free. I don't have anything else to do. And he said, "Oh, could you come in and do another day tomorrow?" And once I got started, I realized this was kind of a habit. He would try and get that extra odd day out of you, and I naively just kind of thought, well, surely they'll pay me overtime for any of these extra days I'm doing, and that wasn't the done thing. He was just doing that, and eventually, after a while, I got kind of used to it, and I started to say no. So
I want to add that that's a really good lesson, because what happens all the time is people do that, these little things to try to get an extra hour, an extra 4 hours, an extra little things, and you don't really notice it just because it's just like an extra few minutes, but it all adds up. It reminds me of taxi drivers in certain cities, whose cities names I won't name, where they purposely take the slightly longer route to your destination just so they could get that extra minute of the taxi fare.
I mean, I'm not sure this was what it was, but there's also the kind of psychology of asking small favors and increasingly bigger favors from somebody, that
Ooh,
they get to the point where you're kind of asserting your power over them, and you're only asking for small
ooh,
things, and they keep saying yes, and they get into the habit of saying yes, and before you know it, you've got full control of that person. But yeah, that's
ooh,
that's not
right.
where I'm going with this story. But yeah, so yeah, got started, and it was in fact, yeah, the first day was interesting. It kind of turned out that he'd been building this kind of web product on behalf of his boss, and had almost overpromised and said, we're going to have this thing ready to demo or ready to launch or something by such and such a date. But they hadn't hired a web developer yet, so he was kind of throwing it together himself. And like, he was a bit of a jack of all trades kind of IT person, and yeah, he'd kind of thrown this thing together using the wrong tools, and like, he was using an e-commerce framework, and it was kind of just because he used that kind of thing before, and he knew how to edit the templates for this particular e-commerce framework, and he just bodged this thing together and made something like kind of appear like it was working, and sat me down on it my first day and said, we've got to have this done. And it was essentially a platform where you would embed kind of Flash and Unity games that people could play on the website, but rather than just games that you can play for free and just at your own will, you'd sort of pay credits to play the games, and you would have an option to win prizes, so some sort of leaderboard, and you would so the system basically needed to connect these. We drop in the games, but the games needed to sort of record your score at the end, so you had to have a login, and you had to have that interactivity between this embedded game and the back-end system. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know how to get this thing to work. Sits me down next to one of the game developers who'd made this cool little game, and we had to figure out between us how to get communicate between them. And he, at some point in the afternoon, we were making some good progress, but at some point in the afternoon, the guy in charge came back in and said, we've got to have this finished today. Nobody's going home until this thing is finished. This is my first day on the job.
Wow.
And we were there until 9 o'clock at night, 9 p.m. And we kind of got it to a point where the guy was happy with it, so we got to go home. But then I just carried on. Went back the next day, carried on.
So I want to make two comments on that. First, that's a massively huge red flag. Not just to make you stay late. Sometimes you need to stay late, but you're not going home until this done. That just shows terrible planning, or maybe not just planning, but on top of that, it's important, a little bit like we were saying a few minutes ago, that your first job sets your expectations for what all jobs are like. Your first day at a job sets the expectations for what the job is going to be like. So if that's the first day,
Yeah. I mean, I could have easily just walked out and said, this isn't working out for me, and I could have gone and found another job. But I was, I kind of went along with it. I needed a job because I just finished university, and I needed to be able to pay the rent and things. So I was kind of happy to just have something that I was going to get paid for. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then that happened. You eventually went home, and then
I suppose it didn't quite carry on exactly the same way. You didn't have late nights regular or anything, but we carried on building the site, and they had some people throwing money at Facebook ads for this website once we'd built it up enough that it was ready to use. And there was all sorts of little crazy little things, like they'd used I should actually go a bit of background about the company. So there was a property development company. So they owned properties and rented them out, and bought and sold properties, refurnished properties, that kind of thing. That was the main business. And the owner of the director of the company had, so this is 2011. So iPhone apps are the big thing of the year,
right,
at the time. And he said, we should get a team on the side making apps, and we'll make some apps, and we'll make some money. We could make a big app and make millions from an app. That was kind of his dream plan. So we got the guy who kind of coordinated his IT for the company, so that ran the property website and that kind of thing, and just said, there you are, there's a budget, go and hire some app developers and things like that, and designers and stuff, and make some apps and try and make some money. And that's where this kind of little team had come from. It gave us this little dingy little office where it didn't have any, it was like concrete flooring, bare concrete walls with graffiti all over them, and just put a load of PCs in there, and sat us all down, and just we just got to work on these. But they kind of fed us these things, that this is what you're going to build, and you're going to make a website for this, and you're going to make an app for that. And there were little things about this website I was building, like they had designed a bunch of graphical assets for a game that was all to do with farmyard animals, and they kind of, for whatever reason, they hadn't gone ahead with it, but they had all the design assets lying around. So they said, well, use those as the theme for this website. So this arcade game website had all these farmyard animals and stuff all over the. It was just loads of
Right.
little things like that that were strange that don't really make any sense without the background. But we got the thing off the ground. We had people using it because they were using Facebook ads and things. We were actually giving away prizes, small things, sort of quite low value prizes. People were just trying to get the ball rolling. People were
Right.
playing the games, and yeah, it actually had a pretty good time building it. It was good fun. I was kind of left to my own. So at one point I swapped out this e-commerce framework backend from for something custom because it didn't really make sense. It was too hard to kind of work around. So I got to do it my own way, and we built up this thing, and it was quite cool, and it was good fun for a while. Yeah.
So that's great. I found interesting your offhand joke when we were just starting a few minutes ago that there's no notion of a production database, because that implies something interesting, that like when companies just hire young and experienced people that don't know how to do things, like they won't even realize, oh yeah, there are these processes that kind of made sense. That probably led to like a bunch of challenging sort of situations, like the classic, oh no, I just deleted the production database.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all sorts of things. We didn't use any version control because it wasn't
Ooh.
something that. I mean, it's really common now for young new developers to pick up, but it was things like getting GitHub would they weren't really as broadly used as they are now, and there were people using things like Subversion at the time, but it wasn't very
I remember
it wasn't,
Subversion.
yeah,
It's old school. Free
yeah.
Git.
But yeah, we weren't even using that. It was just it was just really amateur. But as I say, I was the only web developer, and I didn't have anyone tutoring me or teaching me or showing me the ways. And they were
So,
paying they paid cheap salaries, and they just had a bunch of people like me just out of university or just looking for a job. Um, so yeah, they didn't really have like a source of experience or talent. Just
so,
yeah, people willing to have a go.
so question. You described a couple of like horror moments over the interview and then the first couple of days. As it went on, did other disaster situations slowly unravel themselves?
Yeah, so I mean, one for instance, there was the guy who owned the property company was this kind of young entrepreneurial tycoon type um, who had this demeanor that he was quite young and quite a small guy actually, but he had this his kind of like his best friend from school, like they'd grown up together, and was this great big like bouncer type guy. And he basically hired him to be his driver. So he bought and he bought this Maserati car. It's great big, like one of the most expensive cars you could get, as a present for his friend, who was his driver. And so yeah, there was just weird moments like that. This guy just turning up with this Maserati and doing laps of the car park in it. But yeah, the owner guy, he kind of we noticed he had this kind of a way where if somebody had annoyed him, and or he wasn't very pleased with somebody, or he wanted to, basically, if he wanted to get rid of somebody, rather than just tell them like you're fired and get rid of them in those kind of words, he would sort of turn it on them. So um, he would
Ooh.
he would have a go at that person in private. Take them into his office, have a real go at them, yell at them, tell them they're rubbish, all this kind of thing, to the point where that person would be infuriated and just want to walk out of the place. And so it would be on them that they would just storm out and say, no, I'm not taking this anymore. So this happened 2 or 3 times. So one of the kind of project manager type people that have been brought in, one day he was called in to see the guy, and he just came out just storming, like throwing things into his bag and muttering to himself and swearing and shouting and telling. He just sort of announced to the room, like, I'm off, I'm not taking any more of his. And yeah, and that happened a couple of times, like we noticed. So the guy actually who brought me on originally, who was kind of the one I reported to, the one who interviewed me, the same thing happened to him, a few weeks later, I guess. And we got to the point where he'd kind of gotten rid of all of anyone who wasn't just a developer or a designer. So there wasn't anyone really in between. Although I suppose there was another guy who there's a guy there he was younger than me. He was still at university, but he was on a kind of a placement year. Like there's a thing they do in UK universities where you do 2 years at university, then you do a year in industry, and then you come back. And
Never,
his
never
his
heard.
uncle was kind of something to do with the property business, and so he got him in and said, come and work at this place. They're doing this apps business, but he'd put him at the top, so he was like essentially one of the two leaders of this company. Um, Even though he was like 19 and never didn't have any work experience or anything, he was really nice and everything, but he was just out of his depth.
So
And
this is interesting. So there are a couple of things that now are old enough and experienced enough is the nicer euphemism to recognize as red flags that are worth mentioning. First, having someone that's like that, not just got a job nepotistically, but is just a kid on a placement there, like in a serious job, having that person like in a position of leadership is like how come there isn't anyone like anyone who's seriously focused on the company and like in a position like that would be a red flag to me. Another red flag, and a more it's more subtle, but I find interesting, is the lack of a level in between like the top and all the developers, where it's interesting. I've known some companies like this, and they usually turn out to be disasters, like without a middle class. Like you usually have like so in some companies, the companies without a middle class, you have like the big leader, and then like and then lots and lots of soldiers on the bottom. While the more middle class companies have like the leader, vice presidents, and directors, and then a whole bunch of levels until eventually gets down to them, and that feels much more less subject to the whim of what the great leader is saying than the first type of company.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I've worked in different companies before and had, I've been in a company where I've reported directly to the CEO and had like kind of in a small company and had quite a good relationship. But and then over time things have got more and more structured and there's been more and more layers. And sometimes you think, well, if you've got a good CEO that you want, or somebody you want to work closely with, you're being separated from them by some of those layers being put in. But sometimes it's a good thing because you don't really want to be at the whim of the CEO, and you don't want to be in the direct kind of line of fire. You want it to be kind of filtered down through you kind of want a bit of separation there. So
Right.
yeah,
That
but yeah, it kind of went from there being pretty much three layers to essentially just being the two. So him and everybody else, very flat. But
the middle
yeah,
class.
at the time he's got rid of people. He's essentially fired them, and um, and then he's just barking orders at us now. So now we get to the point where he's just telling us, right, okay, we've kind of canned off the website for now. We've put that on the side. We're going to restructure the way that we sell kind of tickets for these games rather than the way I described it earlier with the where you buy credits. So it's not kind of this open season game anymore. It's this thing where he wants to build up a thing where he will kind of raffle off 1,000 tickets in a go, and then the game will go. So it didn't really require any work anymore. And so he said, right, okay, that's on the side now. We're going to focus on making apps. So this is a point where it's just the guy at the top, and he's reporting to everybody else. So he's telling everybody else, make apps. And we got to a point. He said everybody is now in teams of teams of three, two developers and a designer. And between each three, you have to make two apps a day. So one app
A day.
one new app a day per developer, and the designer split between the two. So yeah,
Oh,
one
yeah.
new app per day. So
Is
you
that
literally be writing ideas on the whiteboard, like and you've got a day. You haven't got time to.
could you do any app more complex than like tic tac toe or like
Yeah, I mean, you didn't have any scope for anything interesting.
right
You quickly run out of ideas that you could, of things like that you can do, and you end up going for variations on, the same thing. So some form of
right
quiz, and you've built a quiz, and you could just go, well, now we change the questions, the exact same code, the exact same framework, whatever, but there's different questions. So it's such a quiz game, and that's it. That's what I ended up
right
doing
right.
most of the time. And I wasn't
Wow.
a
So
developer, so
this is this is a huge red flag of not just like crazy unrealistic expectations, but such an intense work rhythm that it has to be designed to burn people out because that would burn any human out.
oh, yeah. And you're just you're wasting your time because none of this stuff is gonna work. But you couldn't really raise any issues because he would kind of say, well, we're just testing the water. So if an app gets a load of downloads, then we'll put all the resources on that, and half the team can focus on making that app better, and we'll make it good enough that it will. He was just trying to just throw as much stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and then we'll support that one, and we'll take that one forward.
Yeah.
And that was his approach. He just thought that would work. He's got no experience in the IT industry, doesn't know the app market, doesn't know how to manage developers or how developers work or how. I think one of the things I've noticed throughout my career really is that it's really easy for managers and directors and people to, especially if they're not in the tech industry, to undervalue the creativity of the developers in the team. So they just think people, oh, he knows how to write code, she knows how to write code. Sit them down, they can do all the, we're the ideas people, we can throw ideas at them. And the fact that those people are capable of writing code and capable of building apps and capable of doing those things, leads to a creative mind and the kinds of people who have ideas of their own and have creative solutions to things. So
Yeah, I've I've unfortunately noticed that pattern a lot. That often competent people are just, oh, you're good at this thing, then we'll just like treat you like a robot to produce the thing, and like that not
a
only
code monkey, yeah,
a code monkey exactly,
yeah.
and that inevitably burns people out, disinspires them, like makes them quit sooner. But on top of that, it gets you worse apps because the people who know, oh, the technology can do this in this sort of way, you're not harnessing or channeling the creativity. Okay, so question: how long did this one app a day rhythm keep up?
I don't remember how long it went on for, but I didn't stay long after that. So once we got to that point, my website thing, that it was quite an interesting project, even though it was kind of crazy, and questionable in its legalities. With gambling laws and that kind of thing, essentially. Even though it was a bit crazy, it was good fun to work on, and it was a fun project, and I was learning and building and using my own tools and stuff. That was quite fun. And after we'd moved on to that, I'm just sit on an app team, throwing out, making an app a day, just wasting time. I don't remember how long it was. Maybe only a few weeks, and I just I got fed up of that, and they'd never actually given me a contract, so I didn't have a notice period or anything. They'd never done anything like that. I think I'd asked a few times, and I was getting paid every month, so they were paying people. They just hadn't sorted out any contracts or anything. So I just waited to the end of the month, made sure I'd been paid, and then I just said to the 19-year-old who was now the other guy left to report to. I just said, like, I don't feel like I have a place here anymore. We're not working on the website. I'm not really an app developer, and I'm gonna go.
How long was this experience?
Well, this was only like about 4 months. Yeah.
About 4 months.
Yeah.
When you told him you're quitting, did the big boss create this whole show and turn it on you and make you blame on you, make you leave crying like he did with the others?
I seem to remember I don't think he was there that day, or he wasn't around at the time. which I was kind of glad of. I didn't really want. Like, I don't think he would have cared because, I mean, I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but I think I mentioned in the blog post that prior to this, so it wasn't really to do with me. It wasn't directly related to me leaving, but prior to this, like a few days before, maybe the week before, one day I'd been told, oh, the web developer in the app business, the property business is off sick. And like my very first day, somebody had promised the boss that this new feature on their website would be finished and ready to show him, and it needed to be done even though this developer was off. So they farmed me off to the other office and sat me down, and I basically just worked on this new feature all day and had somebody kind of that I was reporting to, and she was telling me what they needed and what this feature was, and I was working on it, and I got it all done fine, and she was happy with it. And then at the end of the day, we went to present it to the boss, and he was just like, I don't know whether it was really not what he wanted, or there was something else going on, or did just want to get rid of me. But he did this whole routine with me and just had a go and said, oh, this isn't what we wanted, and this is not right, and told me to go back to apps, and done this whole thing. It wasn't quite as bad as the one, presumably what the others were like, but he just he really like kind of showed me up, and it didn't bother me the same way because I kind of knew what he was like by then. And as I said, I was thinking about leaving, and I was waiting to the end of the month to get paid. So yeah, that did happen, but not on the same day, and not sort of after the fact. But yeah,
this is possibly the craziest first job story I've ever heard, and I'm happy you've had healthy experiences since then, so you can see what scene work is actually like.
Yeah, and I hope I'm giving a better experience to some of the the grads and juniors that I work with. So
I
yeah.
hope so. Any as we wrap up, do you have any step back pieces of advice or high level lessons from the story that you want to impart on ye young ones, the throngs of millions watching this?
Difficult. I mean, if you've got experienced people working with, you can learn a lot. You can use that time and learn a lot from them. I've worked with some really kind of talented senior people in my sort of the next job I had after this. I worked with some great senior people that I looked up to, and you can learn a lot from people like that. But yeah, if you're in a position like I was, where there isn't anybody to learn from, that's a difficult thing. And I tried to make the most of it, like doing my own thing. And there were all sorts of things problems that came up that had never come up for me before. And I kind of dedicate some time to overcoming each of those obstacles. So I have to integrate with PayPal for the first time, that kind of thing, and I have to go and look at so tackling those problems can be really daunting if you're very young, very inexperienced, and they're out of the realms of things that you've done before. They can be really daunting, but everybody has to do those things at some point, and just take your time and look up, find good resources and see what other people are doing, and just don't kind of be afraid to ask for help or look around or reach out to other communities and other people in the same boat, and find people to learn from. Yeah.
I think that's great advice. I would build on that and tie it into your story, which is a sense of smell is important. And I'm using smell in a metaphorical sort of way. Like if something smells fishy or funny or weird, like it's okay to like say your friends and other people and other people in the same profession, hey, we're doing it like this. Like, is this normal? And I think that's in under your gut is important.
Yeah, you don't naturally have that that sense of smell, so you will develop it over time, and you'll learn from all of these experiences. And I think in a way it's good that I went through these, and some of the people I talked about that I work with now that we have never had that experience. They're not tripping over those hurdles that I did. So it's a different way to get through your career, but yeah, it can be a rewarding experience to have lived through.
I definitely agree, and these are great words of wisdom to impart with everyone. Anna, you're getting wise. No longer the 21-year-old kid at your first job anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on. This has been interesting, fun, and enjoyable. And all you watchers, I hope you enjoyed the story and cringed and got goosebumps as much as I did during this great story as well. Thank you, and until next time.
Thanks very much.